once again, everybody. Mauricio Garcia here. Always happy, excited to have the opportunity to begin yet another Conquistador Podcast every single day. I love this exercise. And to talk about, because yesterday, let me just do this. Yesterday, we talked about what inspired Hubert to begin what he calls the Alexander Inked. And I wanted to go deeper today into what are the keys to Alexander's generalship, what really enabled him to conquer the known world back in those days. So to talk about that, I want to welcome to the stage my friend, my partner, my mentor, the Hall of Fame entrepreneur, Hubert Humphrey. How do you do?
Great. I'm doing great. Glad to be here with my modern-day conquistador.
Hey.
So it's great. If Alexander's going to conquer the world, he'd have to eventually conquer Mexico, and you'd be his biggest general. So because that's what it takes. But talking about that principle,
yeah.
And what Alexander, as you study, there was a book called The Mask of Command, and I recommend people to read that, and you can dig deep into how Alexander mastered these 5 things. He mastered kingship. He didn't know how to be a king, so he had to learn how to be king. So he mastered kingship. He had to become the leader of a great army. He had to literally become a general. He had never had an army, so he was just a young guy. So he mastered generalship of an army. Then he had management of a staff, because you have to now have a staff of people around you. And he had to learn how to delegate and work with them. Then he had to master theater, they called it. He had to understand the theatrics of things and the presentation and how the way he was dressed and how he dressed his soldiers and just their banners and all the theatrics that has to go on to do that. And then he also had to master and have a command of oratory. In other words, he wasn't so much that he was a great speaker; it's just he spoke about great things. He spoke about great ideas. You don't have to be a great eloquent speaker. I'm not an eloquent speaker, but I tell you what, I speak about some great things. I'll speak about some great concepts, some great ideas, and you're right, you do too. So anybody, that's the key, is to master that oratory. But one of the things we wanted to dig deep in here today, that you were talking about there, Mauricio, is that this essence of being a do-it-first leader. And let me just set the stage. Alexander lived in what was called the heroic era, Heroic, the heroic era, the era where the leaders were out front, and he had a big red plume on his big shiny gold helmet. He had breastplate shining, and he had a big white horse and had a big old cape. And a big old shiny, beautiful sword. It was all this. He looked like somebody powerful, but he was out in front of everybody. He was the one up front. Mm-hmm. In that era, great leaders led from the front. Now the other era now is called the post-heroic era, and guess what does that mean? That means the leaders now are leading from the rear. That because you know what caused the post-heroic era? Was the invention of a gun and a bullet, where they could shoot that sucker in front. And so as soon as the weapons of war changed, the leaders had to change, and they went to the rear. But in our business, the leader still needs to be out front. Nobody's going to shoot you out here. You need to be a do-it-first leader. But I want to give you some. As I studied Alexander's life, I kind of pulled these nuggets out of his technique. Anytime he was fixed to take his leaders into battle, you got to understand that he had this unique group of people that was his right hand group, called his special forces team, called the companion cavalry. Mm-hmm. And then he had a bigger group, his bigger army that would go. And then he had all type of specialized units that would have different phases of the war they would fight. But here's how he started. Let me just put my glasses on and read this to you here. It says, here's step 1. Reconnaissance and a staff discussion preceded the advance to contact. And we're talking about going into a full-fledged battle now. So he's meeting with his staff. They're bringing in all their reconnaissance information about the enemy. Mm-hmm. Number 2, then he addressed his men. Sometimes the whole army, sometimes only the officers. You got to understand, he didn't have a microphone. He didn't have a Zoom. He didn't have anything. He had his voice, and he would have to. He would get on his horse. He'd have them all lined up linear, and he would parade up and down in front of them, talking to them loud where groups of them could hear it. And a lot of times he passed the message out to his men, and they would take it and they would pass on this special little message of instructions, the last minute instructions before the battle. So he was communicating orally as best he could to his army and certainly to his officers. Finally, number 3, when the light troops, followed by the companion cavalry, had made touch with the enemy's line, first of all, he would send his little light troop group in there just to get action going, just to see what their next move was going to be. And then once he saw the opening, he would send his companion cavalry, which was right there with him, his special forces group. They would go in, and what Alexander would do right then, before he had all the rest of this 50,000 men follow, Alexander himself charged into battle. He had his sword in hand, he had his shield, he's on his horse, and he's now going into battle. And what happens from here on is what we as modern day leaders need to understand, the power of do it first. He says, at that moment, Alexander's power to command the battle had passed from him. Think about that. He now couldn't stop and say, time out, guys, I got another message for the troops. Nope. He would cross that line. He was in there swinging his sword, doing everything that he hoped the rest of the people would do who followed him. He was doing it. He had lost sight of the line. Number 6, he lost all means to send orders. Number 7, he could only think of saving his own life and of taking that of as many as the enemies put themselves within the reach of his sword arm. In other words, he was trying to accomplish the very mission that everybody in his army had to do. You had to save your own life. You had to kill as many people as you could reach with your sword. That's the objective of any one man once he crosses that line. So that's what he was doing. But number 8 and 9 is the secret. Here's the secret. It says, but the knowledge that he was risking his life with theirs was enough to ensure that the whole army from that moment onwards fought with an energy equal to his. So he was communicating. Wow. He was communicating by his actions. Number 9, total exposure to risk was his secret to total victory. So guys, I learned that 40 years ago, 35, 40 years ago. And can you imagine a crazy railroad conductor like me, full of desire, wanting to be somebody, getting a little dose of this inside of him, inside of a great company like A.O. Williams, and with a great opponent like the insurance industry. We were going against the largest, we were going against the Darius of the financial services world, the Prudentials and New York Lives, and all these big companies that had been denying Middle America all these secrets for so long. And we were going in there to right the great wrong. And buddy, and as I was building my team, I tried to be a do-it-first leader the best I could be. All my leaders became do-it-first leaders. And we all learned how to go out there. We never asked people to do anything we had not done, we were not still doing, and we're not going to keep doing in the future. You can't see right now. One reason why I'm out here on podcast and I'm doing leadership and started this third company, Hedgeman Group International. I can sit back and just talk to people about what all we did in the previous companies. Hey, I can have a lot of fun talking about that. But it's a whole lot better showing them that, hey, listen, I'm willing to go out there and put it on the line and start from scratch and build a whole new company and talk about what I'm doing today, not just about what I talked about I used to do. But anyway, that right there is if you were to cut me open and go down and trying to find the secret of Hubert Humphrey, what's going on inside this crazy guy, those little 9 steps that I learned from how Alexander operated. And it wasn't just Alexander. I could go look at many other leaders in many other fields that would do it first leaders. What's that old saying? I can't hear what you say because what you do is so much louder in my ears, in my eyes. So that's what you got to go do. That's the secret right there, guys. Is he just knew he wanted to redeem the glory of the Greek Empire. He wanted to conquer the world and make it Greek. He wanted to right the great wrongs out there, and he was willing to go put it on the line. And he knew, first of all, they were hundreds of miles away from home. Then they were thousands of miles away from home. So he had to do a whole lot to inspire these people. All he had to do was start getting beat, start having the defeats, and all those guys would have said, hey, let's don't follow it no more. He's just a young buck. Let's go back home. He had no choice. He had to win the next victory, because that's the only drawback of being a do-it-first leader. If you don't do it, well, that's not a drawback. Even if you don't do it perfectly, the fact that you were trying is enough of it to motivate your people. Mm-hmm. And there's no life or death in what we're talking about here. But there was back for him. And so what you got to do, guys, is be willing to get out there and be lazy. People will never conquer their future. They can hook or crook their way into, maybe if they're real ambitious, they can make a little money here or there. But to me, if being lazy paid a lot of money, boy, I could probably be number one in the country in that. I could probably be the greatest lazy person that there ever was, if that was the way you became successful. But it's not, you know. Mm-hmm. And I found out that lazy is a bad word. I say, I love to play, but I want to play where I work. I want to work where I play. Yeah. I want to make sure that my business is as much as I love golf and all the things we've done over the years, and play golf at every great golf course in the world, been on every place, and the yachts and the boats and the planes and you name it. All of that's wonderful. But you know what? I've had more fun. I've had more fun in the doing of this business. I mean, it's just the helping of people, and just I just love conquering myself. That's the first thing. Cicero, another great Greek philosopher, said, "Control thyself," which means conquer thyself. When you're going out to conquer the world, would you start at home and see if you can't conquer your own self first?
One of the things I take from yesterday's conversation that has a lot to do with today's conversation, obviously, is that what you just said in the end here is you had so much fun building a business. And we all know that building a business, you have to eat a lot of dirt when it comes to there's painful, there's growth, there's risk, there's all these things. But when you have the mental toughness we spoke about yesterday, then you kind of learn to enjoy it. You can't wait to wait, for the next morning to arrive, the beat the sun to go at it again. And also, as you go through these 9 essentials, these principles of the do-it-first leader, it applies to anything you want to conquer in life, whether that's relationship. I see it even with my children. Like so many principles here that can help, not just in business. And there's just no way that without these, somebody could really max out their life. And I look at, just to close today, everybody nowadays, especially now, looking for the next coin that's going to make them all this money, the next miracle investment that's going to make them all this money. None of those can come close to really internalizing these principles to manage your business life, your life moving forward. And Hubert has the moral authority here. I'm just an up-and-coming student. I'm a driven, determined dreamer here, trying to absorb as much as I can to try to replicate, copy, and surpass even what my teacher has done. So quite a challenge there. But
hey, Mauricio.
Yeah.
One thing that motivates me to no end, and you are a great example for these people out there, is that knowing that the things experiences that I've had, and they weren't just they weren't my. I mean, everything I've got, I've borrowed from someone else. I've copied those principles and then embellished them in my life and taken ownership of them, and everything. But just knowing that if nobody else on this thing is watching me, but Mauricio Garcia, who's sitting here, which I know he does, he's talented in his own right. He's got a lot of ability in his own right. Does great things. But to know that he's getting this, I can see that this modern day Alexander thing is becoming more and more a big thing to him, and I can sense that him. And if I just stop there, knowing that someone like you that knows how to take this thing into the future and be able to use social media technology and all these tools, along with this ambition and drive you've got, and now this psychology of modern day Alexandership and all that kind of stuff. It's worth the journey just to be able to know I can see what's going to happen with you, just you alone. is worth the price of doing this.
Well, I'll forever be thankful. The value, not just from these podcasts, we have the opportunity to talk about these things. And one of the reasons I do it is because it's changed my life completely. Just looking at, in the same world, but just having a different optic, just a different set of glasses to look at things changes everything. How you react to things, how you do everything. And so thank you for that publicly. And I guess once you learn these things and you really have a desire to go out there and make things happen, there'll be fruits out of this of these things that we're doing. But I'm sure there's a lot of people listening. And it's a good thing that we live in an era now, Hubert, where this is going to be recorded, and I really hope that it reaches more and more people, because the world, I think one of the biggest crises right now is a crisis of leadership. That's the real crisis. Look at countries. I'm Mexican. I was born in Mexico. I look at the U.S. I think in both countries, there's the biggest crisis is really a crisis of leadership. A lot of these principles are not being applied in many businesses, in many families, in many places where it is really required. And may not be the most fun thing to listen to for some people. To me, it is, because I'm in total frequency to this kind of stuff, because I know that's what I need to learn. And so, anyways, we'll wrap it up with that. But I just want to say I'm very thankful for that, and I want to invite everybody to go check out the opportunity that you've put together, which is the HGI opportunity. And thank you for sponsoring this show and for being here. More importantly, taking the time to be here every single day, teaching these things that have really made a huge impact in your life and have generated wealth for millions of families out there. It's made so many millions of people better. And so if you're listening right now, you have to do yourself a favor. You got to go and check out what I call the greatest opportunity in America today. That is the HGI opportunity. Where do you learn more about it? We say it every single time. Going to HGIopportunity.com. Go there now. Check it out. You can thank me later. Hubert, once again, thank you so much for everything you do. I'll see you tomorrow.
All right. See you later.
Warning, this podcast may change the way you think about business, entrepreneurship, and money forever. The Conquistador Podcast was created for dreamers, entrepreneurs, and leaders who want to conquer their future. To be an epic entrepreneur, you must adopt the right mental paradigms as well as master the art of selling, marketing, and finance.